Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mary Jiang, and I'm the president of the Oakland Rotary Club. Founded in 1908, we are the third oldest club of some 36,000 clubs in over 200 countries around the world. We are a diverse community of 270 professionals and community leaders who unite to serve our local and international communities throughout a commitment to service above self. Thank you for joining us in this ballroom for our 5,403rd meetings in the California Ballroom and online. For over 114 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests to our club meetings. Because COVID is still highly contagious, please continue to wear your mask when you're not eating or drinking to protect yourself and each other. For those attending online, if you are a visiting Rotarian or guest of a Rotarian, please enter your name in the chat box located at the center at the bottom of the screen so that we can recognize you in a few minutes. If you have comments using speaker view, located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Now, for our thought for the day, I welcome Rotarian Rick White Soso on Zoom, but I just heard that unfortunately they can't hear the person on Zoom, is that correct? So maybe we'll have to skip thought for the day. Oh, you have a thought for the day. Okay, Jason can do a thought for the day and we're going to reschedule Rika on another day. Thank you, Jason, for this rescue.
It's a very simple thought, my friends. Here it comes. Be the river, not the rock.
That was short and sweet. All right. Please join us in reciting the Rotary Vision Statement, if AV will pull that up. All right, follow. Together, we see a world where people unite, take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. All right. Guests are obviously welcome to visit our club anytime. Past District Governor and past President Ed Gellin. Do we have any visiting Rotarians?
Well, President Mary, we did have a visiting Rotarian who signed in. Is Scott anywhere around here?
No.
Well, we did have for a few moments a member of the the Zoom club of motorcycle Rotarians. And so we had never, I don't think we've ever had a guest from that club, but we extend our welcome to that club. And who do we have here today?
Hi, my name is Rob Tufel. I'm from Lafayette, Rotary, but I actually live 2 blocks from here. So I wanted to come and check out.
Well, welcome to Rob. And I guess I have my job for another week, President Mary.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Ed, thank you. So do we have any other Rotarian bringing in guests today that I'd like to introduce? Carrie? Mike.
Hi, I'm Carrie Bukevich. I'm the executive director with Piedmont East Bay Children's Choir, and I brought with me today as responsible for the meeting our artistic director, Eric Twan. Absolutely amazing composer and conductor. And our fantastic development manager, you can talk with her about our benefit on October 8th, Natalie Titone in the back.
I wanted smaller boxes so I could carry them.
All right, so we're gonna hand out.
Okay, thank you. Dudley, do we have any more other Rotarians or guests? Okay, do we have any online guests? No, thank you.
I'm not sure of their relationship, but we have Ann Stadler. We have Iris Brody Lopez, who is a guest. We have Mary Oli Fenner. We have Merton Chun, Rochelle Carpelis, and Wellman Wong. I think that's everybody.
Thank you, Dudley. All right, today's meeting is sponsored by Carrie Bukovich of the Piedmont East Bay Children's Choir.
Thank you, President Mary, and good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It is an absolute joy to sponsor this meeting in my current role as the Executive Director for the Piedmont East Bay Children's Choir. I could speak with you today about our commitment to challenging young people to interpret and create choral music at the highest artistic level, and share that 40% of our singers actually come from Oakland, only 24% come from Piedmont, and the rest come from Greater Alameda and Contra Costa counties. I could talk about how our summer camps, international and national touring programs, and professional level collaborations with the Oakland Ballet, the Symphony, and others empower our young people and build lifelong friendships aligned with our Rotary vision. I could share how our commissioning work and attention to reclaiming the works of historically marginalized BIPOC and women composers expand the choral canon, including over 70 new choral works in our 40-year history. But as amazing as all of that is, there's one project at PEBCC that brought me to my role. And that is what I feel that most aligns with our Rotary mission and our values in our four-way test. And that's our triannual Golden Gate International Choral Festival, welcoming the world to the Bay Area after a 2-year pandemic delay, July 9th through 15th in 2023. For 6 days and nights, 400 to 500 singers will come to sing, perform, sightsee, and connect with homestay families in cultural exchange and friendship. It truly reflects our four-way test in building goodwill and better friendships for the benefit of all concerned. Next slide. Multiple competitions, welcoming young people from around the globe, from multiple continents abroad and multiple states here at home, all hosted by our PEBCC singer ambassadors. And you can see the different events that we have that go on during the festival. It's music from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. every day. It's absolutely heaven with all these different voices and different choral traditions, Western, non-Western. And if we go to the next slide, you can see where some of them come from. I think we can see where some, let's go one more. So this year we're expecting to welcome choirs from Ghana, Madagascar, Australia, Tbilisi, the Philippines, regional ensembles, and Eric just told me that Lithuania just got added in the time since I made this slide 2 days ago. So we're ramping up. And here are the shameless plugs. We would love to have your participation on the next slide, whether it is as a festival sponsor, through arranging corporate or individual volunteering opportunities with committees or the week of the festival, becoming a festival ambassador, and coming to see our concerts. And I promise that I will remind you about those concerts between now and next July. I also want to let you know that we are kicking off the fundraising effort for this particular festival on Saturday, October 8th. For our annual benefit, I'd like to invite you to come and join us at the Oakland Museum of California Garden. And I also want to acknowledge and thank Ruth Straub and Alita Scola for their support of that event. So in a world full of borders, the Golden Gate Festival builds bridges. And we hope that you will join us this year and that you will contact myself or Natalie or one of our team after the meeting. Thanks for letting us sponsor today. Thanks, Mary.
Carrie, thank you for sponsoring today's meeting. Rotarians, You too can sponsor a meeting for a princely sum of $250 and get 3 minutes of shameless promotion of your business or your organization. Please contact Jesse if you're interested in being a sponsor for another meeting. Thank you. All right, at this point, I would like to do a district announcement. If we could pull up the slide. Great. So I would like to invite Rotarians to attend the District Avenues of Services on October 15, 2022, from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. in person at the Mission Community College in Santa Clara. We haven't had an Avenues of Missions since 2 years ago. It was last 3 years ago because we had 2 years of COVID. The Avenues of Service includes a lunch, a keynote speaker, and a project fair showing what other clubs are doing in the area of international and local services. I believe the Karastuki World Community Service Committee plans to reserve a table to showcase our global grant. The cost is $30, but the club will cover the registration fee for you, so therefore it's free. So please contact Jesse Bauer and he will register you. And I've been to one of these Avenue of Service and it's a lot of fun to see what other clubs are doing. And sometimes that's how people get to know other clubs' project and we can collaborate with other projects. Okay, Joe Garaka, can you tell us the status of a social event?
Thank you, President Barry. Hi, everyone. So last week I mentioned what I think is a pretty fun Oakland Rotary outing. It's the play Lear. And the play Lear is an adaptation of Shakespeare's drama King Lear. But again, it's not your traditional Shakespeare play. For starters, the actors, all but one, are Black. So the power dynamics are far from what I would say Old English royalty. It's set in the 1960s, Black Panther, power to the people era. And the main kingdom is the Fillmore District of San Francisco. Hayward is an enemy camp. And the play is spiced with a jazz score by San Francisco band leader Marcus Shelby. The play is magically unique. It's amazing. Martha and I loved it. Oakland Rotary was able to get a group of 20 tickets for Wednesday next week, September 28th at 7:30 p.m. The cost is $45 a ticket, a great price since some of the cost was subsidized. Currently, we only have one of the group tickets left, just one. If you want it, let Jesse know. He's taken it down off the Rotary website, but if you let Jesse know, he'll get it for you. But there still are tickets available through Cal Shakes. So if you want to buy a ticket at Cal Shakes, you can still join us that evening at the pre-show festivities. The theater is located at the Bruins Amphitheater at Cal Shakes, just outside of the Berkeley Tunnel. And there is a really nice picnic venue right in front of the theater. And we thought we would have a bring your own bottle, sandwich, potluck type dinner ahead of time. The gates open at 5:30. There is a pre-play talk at 6:45 and the play starts at 7:30. So I really hope you can join us. Bring a jacket. It can get warm even if it's, it can get cold even if it's warm. So think about bringing a jacket. So if you love Shakespeare, this play is for you. If you hate traditional Shakespeare, this play is still for you. If you support diverse artistic talent, this play is definitely for you. If you support creative local artistic works, this play is for you. If you remember the Black Panther era, this play will be fun for you. If you enjoy great theater, this play is a must-see. Remember, all the world's a stage and all the men and women are merely players. Hope you can join us. next Wednesday, 7:30, Cal Shakes. It'll be a lot of fun. One ticket left.
It's gone.
No tickets left, except there are plenty of tickets available through the Cal Shakes website. So I really hope you come join us. The fellowship will be great and the play is fantastic.
Thank you, Joe. Like you say, sometimes good things, you have to act fast, get it when you can. All right, Jason Weiselman, can you tell us about another upcoming event that other Rotarians can participate in?
Thank you, President Mary and fellow Rotarians. So we are very fortunate to have a superstar in our ranks. And I am not talking about Mary, but she is one. But Ahmad Anderson, we all know and love Ahmad for his shirts. But did you know that he is a Cal Bear defensive superstar? That was a big part of the 1982 big game that featured the play. He's going into the Cal Sports Hall of Fame this year. That's a big deal. Let's hear it. Yes, come on. Ahmad, if you're online, that'll be $10. So he's credited with creating the Bear Territory chant. Does anyone know the Bear Territory chant? Of course you do. You're unwilling to say it, but I know that you know it. It's on t-shirts, which are right there. You know it, you want it, tell the story, the whole thing. We want to support our man Ahmad. I'm going. A couple of us are already signed up. My man's going. So join Sean and I and a bunch of others at this game. Tickets are available through the calendar and also with this QR code, which I have no idea where that lives other than on this slide. So that's useless to us right now. But we're going. Tickets are going to be $45, I think. T-shirts like $18. So let's do this. Let's support our man Ahmad. Let's go to the Cal game. Go Bears for those of you that go Bears. And we'll see you there. Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, and I believe Tom Lamont is gonna plan also a tailgate party. You guys remember the last tailgate party we had at the A's? Remember we had paella at the tailgate parties? It's unheard of, but it was outstanding. So he's gonna plan another tailgate party. I think we have, 50 tickets. So again, first come, first serve. This will be a great game. All right. Please welcome Allison Bliss, who will introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, President Mary. How many of you, by show of hands, know Wendy Tokuda? Wow. All right. I thought maybe you wouldn't recognize her without her armor and gloves and tools, because she's our champion behind the PAL camp cleanups that we've done for many years as part of Rotary's community service. Jumping into blackberry brambles to pull out the overgrowth, she helps prevent fires in the Oakland Hills, and she does this frequently. For those who don't know Wendy Tokuda, she is an award-winning journalist who worked as a primetime anchor in local TV news for almost 40 years, primarily in the San Francisco Bay Area. Her signature series on low-income kids, Students Rising Above, earned multiple national awards, including a Peabody and a National Emmy Award, and developed into a thriving nonprofit. Wendy and I bonded because working as females in television back in that era, we were under tougher scrutiny. Wendy had to do it as a young Asian American female in what was then a predominantly white male field. Wendy has since won numerous Emmy and Lifetime Achievement Awards, including the Governor's Award from the NorCal Association, National Association of TV Arts and Sciences. But today, Wendy is sharing her personal story. Help me give a warm welcome to our own champion, Wendy Tokuda.
Thank you for inviting me. The little thing? No, I think you want me to stand on flat ground these days, I'll tell you. I'm not stepping on anything that I might, I don't want to be one of the, you know, we used to make jokes about I've fallen and I can't get up. It's just not a joke anymore. Right? I stopped laughing at those, I'll tell you. So we can go ahead and start the slides. Wonderful Dudley here is going to do the honors. And some of you may remember me from my years at KPIX anchoring with the wonderful Dave McElhatton, who was, by the way, from Oakland. Yeah, yep, that's right. But today I'm going to talk about my personal backstory. And I chose this photo because of what I think the kimono tells you about me. This is my family now with, there I am on the far right. And I'm going to go further back though, to 1941. My mom, who you see here, Wendy Tokuda, was a 21-year-old senior at the University of Washington. She was majoring in literature. She wanted to be a novelist. And here you can see her right there with the Japanese Americans group at the U. And here you see her. Next slide. She's in the, there you go. Sorry, Dudley, I miscued you. She's in the center here. She was the oldest of 4 siblings. And on Pearl Harbor Day, she was in the kitchen cooking with her sister and my grandmother when the announcement came that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. This is a government photo that shows the signs that were posted in Seattle on all the telephone poles, telling all persons of Japanese descent they had about 2 weeks to get rid of everything they owned and report to departure points to be taken away. One of those departure points coincidentally happened to be right in front of my mom's home. The Japanese lived in a pretty segregated area, so they could only take what they could carry. They had no idea where they were going, for how long they'd be away. Again, this is a government photo because the Japanese were not allowed to own cameras at that point. Their cameras and radios had been taken away. Now from Seattle, my parents and the other evacuees that were bused here to the county fairgrounds in Puyallup. And you can see what looks like a racetrack over on the left. The buildings had been converted into temporary barracks, including the horse stalls, where many would have to live. And they called this place Camp Harmony. These are the people lined up for the mess hall. There were lines everywhere. And this is a better picture of what it looked like on the ground. They would stay here, my parents would stay here for 6 months under military guard until they could be moved to more permanent internment centers or concentration camps where they were, which were being quickly constructed at the time. Now, when I was a kid, my parents didn't talk much. In fact, they didn't talk at all about the camps. So I actually learned a lot of the history about my books, from books. Now, my mom began to talk about the camps much later in life, but I got a whole new level of insight into what my parents went through as an adult. And that was when my mom got Alzheimer's and I had to start cleaning out her papers. And I was shocked to find a file packed with letters like these that were stamped, censored, and interny of war. Reading some of the excerpts, this one reads, "I've been here a little over 2 weeks, but my God, it feels like 2 years. I'm already losing my sense of time." Another letter from camp. "Too hot to write, too dull to think." And this one. "The thing I really object to is the idea of segregating a group of people on what looks to me to be purely racial grounds and military purposes. The whole thing is a direct violation of certain principles I hold dearest in life." Back now to my mom's files, though. Along with the letters, I found these, my mom's journals. Some of them just steno pads, as you can see, with faded covers. Her handwriting was really bad. I mean, illegible in some points. Sometimes she wrote them in pencil. But here were her thoughts in honest, intimate detail. A Caucasian friend took this picture of my mom inside the barbed wire at Puyallup. Now, this is a very rare family photo because, again, Japanese were not allowed to have cameras, so I'm lucky to have this. But she wrote this on that first day she arrived in Camp Harmony. "Our apartments turned out to be a bare room with a light bulb hanging down the center. Tufts of grass stuck out between the floorboards, and the partitions did not go completely to the ceiling. The toilets were communal, there were no partitions, and we got in line at mealtime. On our first night in this strange world, someone knocked at the door at 10 p.m. and said, 'Lights out.' We couldn't sleep because the baby down the barrack cried until about 5 a.m. Tommy said, 'I want to go home.'" Now, my mother hadn't met my father yet at this point, but here he is in the dark suit, shaking hands with a woman in the middle. And this is when he opened Tokuda Drugs in Seattle. He was a 30-year-old pharmacist, ambitious, hardworking, and he had just opened up his second store when the war broke out. He would end up losing both the stores, as well as his brand new car, his fishing poles, everything. This is my dad in a newspaper photo when a curfew was imposed on Japanese Americans soon after Pearl Harbor Day. And it shows my dad closing up the store, his store, early. And this was the tag that my father had to wear when he was taken away. In 1980, when there were congressional hearings about the internment and the possibility of redress, my dad wrote this statement, quote, "I asked a friend to run the store during the evacuation. While I was still at the Puyallup Assembly Center, Camp Harmony, that friend brought me $18 in total, saying the business was gone. I realized that she was depleting the stock to nothing, cashing in, figuring that I would never return. I asked the authorities to release me for 1 day so I could return to Seattle to assess the situation. However, that request was denied, and I sold the stock and the fixtures of the store by proxy for $1,900. After the war, that's end of quote, after the war, it cost my dad $9,000 to buy back those fixtures in the store. My parents were taken by train, summer of 1942, to the Minidoka Internment Center. Remember, they don't know each other yet, but this is in Hunt, Idaho. These are government photos. Again, a lot of them are because we couldn't have cameras. 13,000 Japanese Americans would be incarcerated in Minidoka. Altogether, 120,000 Japanese from the West Coast were locked up, and most of them were American citizens. Minidoka, here's a distant shot, was really actually a city. And like all 10 of these camps, these internment camps, it was built out in a remote spot in the desert, so there would be no chance of espionage. They were there for a reason. My mom wrote this in her journal about arriving at the barracks. Quote, "Suddenly there was a moan or a low whistle in the distance, like a warning. Through the open door, I saw the dust being swirled into a filmy cylinder, approaching steadily, rapidly. One of the men rushed to close the door, and others slammed the window shut. The walls started to shake, and the dust seeped inside to the door and the window cracks in little puffs until finally the room was clouded and it was difficult to breathe." End of quote. It was always dusty in Minidoka, and it was muddy or frozen in the winter. This was the notice of incomplete the University of Washington sent my mom in camp. She was never able to finish her degree. But this is where my parents met, in a prison camp. My mom was a librarian, and my dad started checking out a lot of books. And he was not a reader. This was a canal where they would take long walks, and my dad courted my mom. You can see the guard tower in the back. And at this point, mom's journals began to devolve into a diary of a lovesick 22-year-old woman. And then when they were allowed to leave camp to work, as they were, some of the younger people, those journals stopped for a time. These were the green cards that they used to leave the camp. That's my dad, below is my mom. My dad went to Chicago, where he learned to weld, and my mom followed. And that's where they were married. But the conditions were harsh in Chicago. Skid row conditions they were living in. It was hostile. It was wartime. And when my mom got pregnant, her friend advised her, do not have your baby here. Because when she went into labor in a hospital in Chicago, a Caucasian woman was wheeled into the delivery room. And that woman shouted, "Get that Jap out of here. I am not going to have my baby in a room with a Jap." So my mom actually elected to cross the country and go back to Minidoka to have my oldest brother. The rules had loosened by then in 1945, so we do have a couple of photos, this one inside their barrack, and we have another outside, you'll see. Butchie was born severely intellectually disabled. There was no way to know how that happened. We've always felt that it had to do with the wartime conditions, probably in Chicago. But we had the feeling the war was somehow involved. Well, my mom was still in Minidoka, and my dad went ahead to Seattle, and he stayed there with a dear friend, Bill Eng, who's Chinese American. Now, I don't have a picture of Bill, so you're just gonna have to stare at this picture of my dad's drugs, what the drugs from my dad wanted to buy back, actually. Now, it was unusual, really unusual, that Bill and my dad even became friends at the time, because Japanese and Chinese communities at that time did not interact. There was a lot of animosity dating back to the wars between China and Japan. But Bill was known as the best fisherman in Chinatown, and somehow he and my dad became fishing partners. And he and my dad had a standing date to fish every Thursday. So when he was released, my dad stayed with Bill Eng. Now, no wholesalers would give my dad credit to buy the stock he would need for a drugstore, even though he had worked with them before the war. The bad feelings about the Japanese were very much in place at this time. And one night, my dad returned to Bill's house, very discouraged. And he told him what he was going through. And Bill asked him, "How much do you need?" And my dad said he needed about $5,000 to buy that initial stock for the store. Billing went down to his basement, came back with $5,000 and gave it to my dad. It was a loan to be repaid whenever he could. And that was the depth of this friendship between two people of different races. And it was the depth of Bill Eng's kindness. These are my parents in Seattle. Next slide. This is them, and you can see my dad's drugstore in the background, which he was eventually, after some effort, able to buy back. It took a while. One of the documents that my mom saved in that time capsule in her files was a government handout that was given to internees when they left Minidoka, and it was called Helpful Hints for a Successful Relocation. And it's spelled out, it doesn't matter if you can read it here, I'm going to tell you some of the pertinent things. It's spelled out in black and white, advice like this. Do not gather in groups on the street. Do not speak Japanese in public. Remember that others be slow to recognize your status as an American, and consider yourself to be working to promote a better understanding of all Japanese Americans. And the message here in all of this advice was clear. There was something wrong with us. And it was going to take a lot of work to re-enter America. Those blueprints became, or those helpful hints became a blueprint for raising the five of us here, me and my sibs, to keep us safe. That was our goal. Now, I was born only 5 years after my mom walked out of those camp gates holding my brother. It did not matter that they did not talk openly about camp. We grew up soaked in their feelings, their anxiety, their fears, their humiliation. We saw the stairs. We watched my dad work 6, sometimes 7 days a week to try to reestablish his business. And to prove we were good citizens, we were Americans, they pushed us to excel in school. This drive to achieve hey, it had immense benefits. Okay, no question about that. I was able to go to college, finish college. I was able to have a successful professional career. This is me here with Wayne Walker when Loma Prieta hit at Candlestick Park doing a live shot. I am living proof of the promise of America. And yet, I still feel Minidoka in my bones. I feel the anxiety, the shame. I often feel like somehow I'm in trouble. I feel the burden of needing to be perfect. Now, I'm assuming some of you may be surprised to hear me say this, and that is exactly my point. It took me a lifetime to say out loud, I am the child of prisoners. And I don't say that to make anyone feel guilty for what happened 80 years ago. I say it because hatred, unfortunately, still exists in this country. And because I believe the true history of this great nation must include stories like mine. I believe that to embrace all of these diverse and often hidden and often painful stories, and to learn from them, to say them out loud and to learn from them, will make America stronger and a greater country. I take your questions. Oh, is there a mic in the audience for anyone who has questions? Anyone has questions, raise your hand. There's one right there. Maybe they can just hear you. No, the mic's right there. Okay.
Thank you so much for being here with us. I have a kind of a question about your training, your education.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Is that mic on or?
Hi.
There you go. Okay.
Thank you for being here. And
Thank
I had
you.
a question about your education. Where did you train? What was the process like for you? And then I also want to know how you started Students Rising Above.
I have been in this very room talking to Rotary about Students Rising Above. Because I was lucky enough to ask to speak about that. And it is a project that I started with television stories that would tell the stories of teenagers who were growing up in poverty. And most of them below the federal poverty line. Many of them had no parents living with them, certainly, and many of them abused. And the difference with these kids was all of them wanted to go to college, but did not have the money to do it. So we started telling these stories, you know, profiling kids many from Oakland, many from the East Bay. And then we would ask viewers to donate money to help send them to college. We weren't even sure anyone would donate, but they did. And eventually, and we got a foundation to take that money, and eventually we turned into a nonprofit. And that profit actually still exists today under the name Students Rising Above, helping low-income kids go to college. It's grown a great deal since then. It has a hub where any kid in the United States can go online and get information about how to go to college. Because these kids, They didn't even have the sheets you need to live in the dorm, you know? They had no computer to take to school, and they were gonna go there and compete with the children of doctors and lawyers. So we had to do everything we could to set them up for success in that world. And that takes a lot of hand-holding, you know? It takes a lot of hand-holding. It's not a check that you give them to help pay tuition. It's a real, you know, eventually what we did was we hired advisors that would check in with them often to make sure they were getting what they needed. And they continue to stay in touch with us after they graduated, many of them. And now they've turned into lawyers and doctors, a lot of teachers, and now many in the high-tech world. Anyway, next question.
Wendy, Stephanie Cosenza says a very moving story. Did your parents' experience influence your decision to be a journalist?
Not at all. Because for me, telling my parents I wanted to be a reporter was sort of like saying I wanted to go to the moon, you know, in an astronaut suit with no shuttle. I mean, back then there were no Asian people on the air, and less than a handful, there were 4 doing news. So what happened to me, I didn't even think of it until one day, a Japanese American woman appears on the news in Seattle, Washington, for Como Television, doing the news. And when she would come on, my dad would go, "Everybody come here, it's Barbara Tanaba, she's on TV." And Barbara's on TV, we would all have to gather in front of the TV and stare, because we had never seen that before. And somebody knew her, she was a really good person, and she let me come down and watch her in the newsroom. And I watched her for a morning, and I knew in my gut that was what I wanted to do. And that's what I set to do. But my parents, my poor parents, had nothing to do with it. But I'll tell you what, when it happened, they just about went nuts. I mean, that is a parent's e-ticket. And I was fortunate enough, I mean, I remember the day I called my dad to tell him I got the ticket. And he could barely talk. They just couldn't believe it. They could not believe it. I felt the same way.
My name is Alita Scola. Thank you very much for being here. And you and Dave were in my living room for so many years that I really felt like I knew you. People on TV.
You have to speak closer to the mic.
You and Dave were in my living room. I felt like I knew you for years and years and years.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you could tell us what is the most impressive or the most interesting experience you had during your broadcast career?
Ooh. Well, I would say I had some pretty amazing experiences. I mean, I got to go inside of a volcano, and then had to hike down. We got lost. I covered the riots in LA. I covered fires. I covered Loma Prieta. Northridge was sent to Kobe when the earthquake happened there. The riots were the worst, because that's human on human, you know. People go, "Ooh, weren't the earthquakes scary?" And I go, "Hey, that is something no one could prevent." And then people come together, you know. That's hard to see people come together in crisis, help each other. The riots, that was hatred and anger, destruction, and really, really hard. But the best stories I ever told, honestly, were those 17-year-old kids that I interviewed for Students Rising Above. I mean that, because they gave me hope, you know, and they gave me purpose in life that maybe I could make, you know, when I started anchoring, I'll be real honest with you, it was really hard because I was actually as a child really shy. So to overcome that was a struggle, okay? But when I was anchoring, oh my God, I couldn't believe that was happening. It was like 6 and 11 o'clock with Dave Macalat. You're kidding. I wasn't even 30. And a friend of mine, a mentor, who was an anchor in Seattle, where I had started, she was the anchor when I was there. She was brilliant. You know, she went to Stanford, you know, and she would do these amazing interviews with like the first lady, and, you know, we talked on the phone. And she said, how are you liking your job? I said, oh my God, it's so exciting. I just love it. She goes, really? Because I think anchoring is kind of a dumb job. Because basically, you know, let's be real. It's two anchors talking to each other. It's reading, okay? Unless you make it more than reading. Unless you really put effort into understanding each of those stories, the background, reading every newspaper, listening to KCBS in the morning coming in, watching Charlie Rose, oops, back then, you know, at night or Nightline, and until you get back out on the street and start reporting and talking to real people. Because sitting up there on a phone book, because I was shorter than Dave Macalat, and they had to boost me up, you know, spraying my hair. Reading is not journalism. Journalism is reporting, and there is a world of difference. Now, I don't even remember what the question was. Oh, this is the most important thing. So back to those kids. Those kids brought me into East Oakland, West Oakland, Richmond, Hunters Point, you know, the worst neighborhoods, the Tenderloin, the toughest neighborhoods in the Bay Area, to talk to real people and find out what they were living with. This hidden world that we don't see, you know, just a few miles from here, walking distance to where some of those kids lived. Anyway, long answer. To your short question, I apologize.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks for being here. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
You mentioned how in the years after the internment, no one spoke about it openly. I was wondering when these stories eventually became told, and was there something in the course of American history that triggered these stories being allowed to be told and shared and honored?
Well, you know, it wasn't my parents' generation, the Nisei, you know, second generation Japanese, that told the story. It started when my generation, Sansei, started talking about it. They started, they led the movement to ask for redress. They led the movement that led to US Supreme Court hearing on the legality of the internment. And they, Sanseis were the ones who started talking about what happened. And, you know, this is many years after the internment. And because, you know, it was the civil rights movement. It was Martin Luther King, you know, who made it okay to be a person of color, and talked about our need to find our place in America. And so an Asian movement really began, and these revelations about what happened these years ago was out in the open, and people were shocked to hear about it because they knew nothing about it. It wasn't in history classes or anything. I mean, JAs, Japanese Americans, kids didn't know much about it because their parents were too ashamed and hurt to talk about it. So I learned initially from reading books, but talking about it, it was the civil rights movement that opened it up. And I will tell you this, when I did a story, and I did it on Pearl Harbor Day, because on that day, A lot of Japanese Americans that very day, FBI came to their doors and took them, and they were in prison for the duration of the war. Okay, they have them all picked out, business leaders. They were business leaders. And they were suspected of possibly being spies or having too close connections to Japan. I did a story on people that day, Japanese Americans, what happened, how they felt that day, and where they eventually ended up, Minidoka, Tule Lake, Topaz, Manzanar, Poston. And I got hate mail every December 7th from that year on for years. Oh, and I would also get them on Victory over Japan Day. I get letters. You yellow monkey this, you guys went through nothing compared to the POWs in Japan, go back where you came from. All of it. Sorry to end on that note. I guess I should say something happy. I loved my career. I loved it. You know what? No, I was lucky. I was lucky to do what I was able to do so I could tell these stories. Thank you.
All right, well, Wendy, thank you for that awesome and fascinating story, personal story about your family. Education is my area of focus for this year. Yes, the Rotary Club of Oakland is proud to partner with the Oakland Promise to offer 8 $10,000 annual scholarships along with Rotarian mentorship. Thank you. We are proud to support as many of the first in their family to attend college. In recognition of your presentation today, the Oakland Rotary Club will make a donation in your name to the Oakland Promise to support its kindergarten to college plan for every child in Oakland. Thank you. Rotarians, do we have any celebration or special event to share? Rania.
President Mary, I would like to ring the bell and honor Miss Wendy. As Ms. Leah said, I literally grew up feeling like I know you. We're watching the news with you, but even more so, I just ring the bell in honor of you, telling the tough stories, the history of our country, and just breaking those curses and those chains and making people know that the doors are still opening. We're not going to be afraid of the history of this United States, but we're moving forward in a different direction. So I really appreciate you for that.
Okay. So Rania for Wendy Tokuda. Okay. Well, I also would like to ring a bell for my friend Wendy Tokuda. I've known her for many years, and her stories is amazing and similar to the Chinese American. They have the paper son story that we should tell someday. Wendy. Do we have, a bell ringer is a generous tax-deductible donation of $100 to our Oakland Rotary Endowment. So this is a fun way of fundraising for the club. All right, Dudley, do we have any bell ringer online? Okay. Ruth, would you tell us about next week's speaker? Is she here? Okay. Oh, she went out. Okay. All right. And then I'll mention it. So next week's speaker will be Jill Violet. She's the CEO and founder of Playworks, and she will talk about how play impact learning among children. So that will be another fascinating topics to cover. All right, and then I also want to make an announcement. Our new roster has just been printed courtesy of Susan Smith Print Shop. And you can, yes. So on your way out, if you like a hard copy, please pick one up. We sent you one online already, but some people like to have a hard copy paper. All right, so at this point, I'd like to thank Jason Wiseman for the thought for the day, Carrie for sponsoring this meeting, Joe Caracca to tell us about the sold out social event, but people still can buy tickets online. And Jason, that was Joe. Jason was telling us about upcoming football game at UC Berkeley. Allison for introducing this week's speaker, Wendy Tokuda for the awesome and enlightening story, and the production team for managing this meeting. Let me let you know, next week I will be on vacation, and President-elect Tom Lamone will run the meeting, so don't give him a hard time, okay? So, share. Ms. Means, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.